Hi everybody, welcome to today's episode in the series of webinars presented from Xtravirt, where today's seminar is called very subtly, Say Yes to VMware Cloud on AWS by our marketing department. It's a very nuanced message. So firstly, I'd like to say thank you for registering and taking the time out of your day to come and join us. I can see some of you who have registered for this today already know about us, and it's great that you've joined us again. For those of you who don't know who we are, many thanks for being with us. It's a pleasure in speaking to you, and I hope the information today covered is useful for you. Before we jump into all the good information, let me introduce myself. My name's Matt Hoppe, and I'm the sales director here at Xtravirt. And I'm today joined by James Kilby. Would you like to say hi, James?
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. My name is James Kilby. I'm one of the senior consultants at Xtravirt, specializing in VMware Cloud on AWS.
Thanks, James. Let me take this opportunity to give you all a short insight into Xtravirt and what kind of work we do. So Xtravirt is a professional services and consulting organization that delivers lifecycle engagement all the way through to managed services. As an organization, we're very focused on 4 core pillars of engagement with our clients and customer base. And those 4 pillars relate to strategy, technology, transformation, and the managed services beyond. And ultimately, our business is traditionally focused, or historically very focused, on outcomes and time to value. How do we realize the value from the investments that our clients and customers make in the technology platforms available today? The information that you can see now are a couple of high-level bits of information for us, but the things that I would like to touch on specifically, as this is a VMware-specific VMware Cloud on AWS technology stack, relates to the awards that we've won recently. As a bit of reference for you, over the last 3 years, Xtravirt have won 6 global and regional awards, which include things like the Global Professional Services Partner of the Year to VMware, Cloud and Digital Transformation Partner of the Year, as well as Customer Success Story of the Year. And that particular award was recognized against a VMware Cloud on AWS opportunity or delivery of project. In the marketplace, we're recognized as industry advisors, and we work across numerous vendors and organizations to provide guidance and assistance in how to realize the value from a client's or customer's perspective in the technology investments and the technology developments that are made today. And with over 1,000 technical certifications across 22 plus technology vendors, we've actually got a huge breadth of experience in looking at data center or workspace transformations as well. The information that you can see now really relate to some of the outcomes that we focus in achieving with our clients and customers across those 4 pillars. So things like the planning, the scaling and evolution of an IT infrastructure for a business are quite important for us in strategic services. When we look at technology, we might be talking about multi-cloud or architecture, applications and security. For transformations, when we look at cloud transformations or digital workspace, modern applications, automation are all key areas that we focus on for our clients. And then through to managed services, where we look at things outside of our XMS managed service desk to looking at service operations and strategic services that we try and deliver through additional flex service offerings into the marketplace. So now you know a little bit more about us. Hopefully we'll get into the session today. The presentation is going to be followed with a 10-minute Q&A session at the end of the video. And you can ask any questions that you have through the Q&A box, which is located in the meeting tab at the bottom of this presentation. And we'll either look to answer your questions on the fly, or we'll try and cover them at the session on the end. So if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A box. Depending on the organization that you work for, it might be worth mentioning that staff at Xtravirt are security cleared. We have understandings and we can meet financial and corporate compliance requirements, which might be pertinent to you. You can also use the chat box if you would like to send any private messages to us, which we can also look to respond to. And finally, if you have any difficulties or issues, please use the chat boxes whilst you're muted during the presentation. Someone can see if they can help you watch the video properly. So let's get started with Andy Hine, our Enterprise Technical Pre-Sales Manager.
Hello and welcome to the first webinar in this series presented by Xtravirt. Today we're discussing getting started with VMware Cloud on AWS. So let's jump straight into a VMware Cloud on AWS overview. So by utilizing VMware Cloud on AWS, customers can realize business outcomes common to cloud and hybrid cloud. Whether you're looking to optimize and reduce costs, such as consolidation of your data center footprint, reduce infrastructure management overhead, or move where possible from a CapEx to an OpEx cost model. You can accelerate innovation by opening up new modern application development options, leveraging native close-by cloud services, and extending the value of your existing investments, particularly in this case, in AWS. And you're able to more quickly respond to change, and you can expand and shrink capacity on demand and respond to availability challenges such as data sovereignty and close proximity to end users. So in terms of what VMware Cloud on AWS is, it's a result of VMware and AWS partnering to deliver a seamlessly integrated hybrid cloud. By bringing together VMware, the leader in compute, network and storage virtualization, and Amazon Web Services, one of the most popular public cloud providers, VMware Cloud on AWS is a jointly engineered solution that delivers the best for VMware and AWS customers. VMware Cloud on AWS has proven delivery capabilities. It offers VMware software-defined data center technology delivered as a service inside AWS Cloud. It brings a consistent and familiar set of VMware technologies, which leads to enhanced workload portability and hybrid capabilities. But it also has direct access to a wealth of native AWS services, and it's suitable for hosting existing and new workloads, as well as developing applications with both virtual machine and container support. If we look at some of the key differentiators for VMware Cloud on AWS, we're going to have operational consistency with that familiar vSphere-based environment just delivered as a cloud service. We're going to leverage seamless and bidirectional large-scale app migration capability consistent with your existing policies and configurations. There's no need for us to refactor or re-architect applications. If they work on vSphere, then the chances are they will work in VMware Cloud on AWS. We've got enterprise-grade scale, availability, and performance globally in line with Amazon's global infrastructure. And we've got a rich set of VMware capabilities for mission-critical and enterprise applications in line with VMware's software-defined data center. If we look at some of the value for migrating to VMware Cloud on AWS, well, with a cloud migration, we can minimize complexity and the risk associated with that transition, going from a consistent platform. We can also benefit from simplified and accelerated speed of migrations, reduce cost of those application migrations, and extend the value of the existing on-premise enterprise investment that you've made. Some of the direct benefits will be that on-demand scale up and scale down. We're going to maximize the use of your existing capability, your tool sets and processes. We're going to reduce the operational overhead, introducing as-a-service cloud. And we're going to support established governance and security policies that already exist within your organization if you're running VMware-based products. So here are some common use cases for VMware Cloud on AWS that we've seen through working with our customers. We're going to touch on these at a high level, but we'll be taking a deeper dive into the first two, which are cloud migration and data center extension, later in this presentation. So if we start at a high level with cloud migration, whether this is per application or per project, looking for a first mover to move to cloud, or whether it's an entire data center closure or an infrastructure refresh, VMware Cloud on AWS is suitable for cloud migration. If we're looking at data center extension, so you may want to expand your footprint, you might want to have burst capacity, a secondary or a tertiary data center, or maybe a more localized facility for a specific use case. Test and dev workloads are ideal for data center extension as well. The third use case you can see is disaster recovery, whether we're providing a completely new DR solution, replacing an existing disaster recovery solution, or even complementing an existing solution. VMware Cloud on AWS can cater for that requirement. In terms of building next generation applications, so it's cloud native by default. We've got that container support that we've mentioned, and we're also close to Amazon's native AWS services. And the fifth use case is virtual desktop infrastructure. So we're seeing through work with our customers that VMware Cloud on AWS is a perfect candidate for hosting VDI workloads, particularly when applications and data need to be running within close proximity of one another. And when we're talking about VMware specifically, VMware Cloud on AWS fully supports Horizon 7 natively, with all the enterprise features, including cloud pod architecture, making that integration with existing VDI pods really, really straightforward. In terms of VMware Cloud on AWS availability, whilst there is good global availability, the key point here is that not every AWS region currently supports VMware Cloud on AWS just yet. So VMware and Amazon are working hard to have VMware Cloud on AWS available in every AWS region. Currently, the solution is available across 16 regions and over 30 availability zones, with further expansion through 2020 into areas such as Africa and China. So if we look at the solution architecturally, we're running VMware software-defined data center components inside Amazon on Amazon bare metal servers. The three core components of VMware's Cloud Foundation are in use here, so vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. It's a solution that's sold, operated, and managed solely by VMware. It's updated and supported as such, for example, automatic host remediation. We've got on-demand capacity with auto-scaling and flexible consumption options. And as we said before, as this is using tried and trusted VMware technology, we've got that operational consistency with on-premise VMware SDDC and VMware Cloud on AWS-based SDDC, so we've got workload portability. We've also got direct access into Amazon's global AWS footprint, and we've got access to native AWS services via a high-speed, low-latent link known as an ENI, an Elastic Network Interface. And design permitting, this can actually be free of egress and ingress for customers. So it's a really good feature of the solution. In terms of SDDC deployment options, so think of an SDDC as a single vCenter akin to the on-premise environment that can contain multiple clusters. So a standard cluster is hosted in a single AWS region and in a single availability zone. It must consist of a minimum of 3 hosts for a vSAN cluster, although there is a brand new 2-host option with a vSAN witness that has just been released into general availability as of July this year. And we can have a maximum of 16 hosts or nodes per cluster. For a stretch cluster, we span 2 Amazon AWS AZs, availability zones, within a single region. We've got a double minimum node count from 3 to 6, and again, a maximum node count of 16. There are more advanced configurations, including multiple SDDCs for those customers that are working towards a multi-region support. So in terms of the hardware options available with VMware Cloud on AWS, so up until mid-July 2020, we only had 2 options. We had an i3.metal instance and an r5.metal instance. The i3 metal tends to be the more favored. It's a kind of a general workhorse. It's offering a good balance of CPU, RAM, and NVMe storage. The R5 metal instance is supported by Elastic vSAN to give you larger capacity options, and it's backed by Amazon's Elastic Block Storage for that more capacity, and it's good for capacity-bound workloads. As of July 2020, a new instance type was released, which is the i3EN. This hardware option provides roughly 5 times more raw storage than the i3, up to 96 logical CPUs, and approximately 1.5 times more memory when compared to the current i3 metal instance. These 3 instances, the instance types, are obviously priced accordingly, so it's important that the correct choice is made early when looking at budgets. In terms of networking options, all of the main networking in VMware Cloud on AWS is provided by NSXT. This connects the ESXi hosts together and provides logical networks for your virtual machines. It's compatible with NSX on-premise and along with other vSphere features. However, having NSX on-premise is not a prerequisite for VMware Cloud on AWS. NSXT also allows customers to deliver additional capabilities such as microsegmentation through distributed firewalling, VPN services, and a whole list of other important networking services. Connectivity to VMware Cloud on AWS is also underpinned by NSXT. So NSX integrates with AWS Direct Connect, which is a consistent high bandwidth, low latent connectivity type. It supports IPsec VPNs with options to support layer 2 and layer 3 network extension. And it connects with existing AWS VPCs, virtual private cloud services as well. If we look at some of the data charges you might expect with a VMware Cloud on AWS solution, it's worth noting that ingress traffic into the platform is free of charge. There is a charge for egressing traffic and data out of the platform. This will differ depending on whether you're using something like an AWS Direct Connect or whether you're using a VPN over the internet. Your VMware Cloud and AWS SDDC will actually be hosted within a VMware-owned Amazon VPC. And the key point here is that traffic between that VMware-owned VPC into AWS, so a customer-owned VPC where you might be leveraging native AWS services, is free of ingress and egress charges. And that's because we use the Elastic Network Interface, which is provided as part of your VMware Cloud on AWS solution. For those stretched deployments across availability zones, there are additional charges that you need to be aware of. And again, for those deployments that are stretching region, there'll be further charges to be aware of. As you would expect with a cloud-based solution of this nature, VMware Cloud on AWS is compliant with the main industry regulations and frameworks that are out there, as well as having a ever-expanding, growing list of partner ecosystem support as well. So let's take a look at our first use case, cloud migration, in a bit more detail. As we've discussed already, VMware Cloud on AWS provides not only consistent VMware SDDC-based technology on AWS bare metal, it also connects directly into native AWS services across their global infrastructure. This means VMware Cloud on AWS supports a wide range of tactical and strategic migration use cases. So if we take a look at migration of workloads, for example, to VMware Cloud on AWS, once we've identified our source virtual machines, we can, at a high level, organize them into logical buckets. Which ones can take downtime? So test and dev are quite a good example of downtime, sort of the lower hanging fruit, if you like. Which workloads can take a minimal amount of organized downtime, so most general applications and infrastructure workloads, and which workloads can't have any downtime at all. So these are your mission critical applications. So once we have our workloads organized into these buckets, we can determine which mechanism is best suited for a migration to VMware Cloud on AWS. If virtual machines can accommodate downtime, then a cold migration is a good option. The VM can be shut down, migrated, and then powered back on. If the VMs cannot tolerate any downtime, then a live vMotion is the chosen method. Of course, there's lots of considerations to take into account when looking at these options, such as the virtual networking, the switches and the versions of switches supported, the type of connectivity you have to your VMware Cloud and AWS SDDC, your virtual hardware versions, etc. And there are a number of caveats here to make these options work. And there's also the third bucket that we talked about, which is those VMs that can tolerate some downtime. So how do we cater for those? And this is where VMware Hybrid Cloud Extension, or HCX, comes into play. HCX enables us to perform all of these options at scale. So what is HCX? So Hybrid Cloud Extension is a supporting tool that provides a hybrid interconnect, which enables simple, secure, and scalable application migration. It allows you to have secure, bidirectional connectivity with built-in VPN and layer 2 networking extension capabilities, including WAN optimization and compression features. It enables you to migrate a virtual machine using HCX vMotion, which together with vSphere replication provides minimal downtime through seeding of workloads. It allows you to perform bulk migrations between on-premises and VMware Cloud on AWS, providing your source environment is running vSphere version 5 and above. You can even schedule those migrations that need to happen out of hours or in the middle of the night. So whilst HCX is an additional toolset, it is included within your VMware Cloud on AWS subscription. So if we take a look at our second use case, which is data center extension, in a little bit more detail. So we see many different ways customers are looking to leverage a hybrid cloud environment. Some customers really plan to keep the center of their infrastructure in their private cloud, but selectively looking to extend to the public for things like DR or for geo capacity expansion. Other customers might want to reduce their data center footprint and do more and more in the public cloud. Sometimes migrating applications or collections of workloads selectively. In other cases, looking to get out of their own DC entirely. And thirdly, we see customers who want to treat their private cloud and their public cloud as equal peers. So to easily move workloads between them for things like moving applications between test dev to production and burst capacity. So VMware Cloud on AWS can enable customers to manage and administer both their on-premises and their VMware Cloud on AWS resources from the same logical view, using the same tool sets that are familiar and consistent for you. By deploying vCenter Cloud Gateway, an on-premises virtual appliance, customers can configure hybrid link mode and link their on-premises vCenter server with its counterpart in VMware Cloud on AWS. Hybrid link mode is a feature that allows operational consistency between your vSphere environments, both on-premise and in your cloud. So with the true hybrid cloud architecture, we must be able to move our workloads back and forth, and we have a number of ways to make this happen, starting with that hybrid link mode configuration that we discussed. So once we're in this scenario, there are three ways to migrate workloads. We can use HCX, as we've discussed already. We can perform a live migration through vMotion. We can perform a cold migration through Power Off and Move. We also need to think about how we make things like templates and virtual machine files and ISOs available both in the cloud and on-premises. This is where we can utilize our content libraries. And of course, we've got EVC, or Enhanced vMotion Capability, which enables us to vMotion workloads even between hosts with inconsistent CPU architectures. So if you look at hybrid cloud operations, VMware Cloud on AWS uses familiar toolsets. So for those that administer vSphere-based environments on-premise, you'll notice a very similar layout in terms of your vSphere client. And by connecting our vCenter on-premise with the VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC equivalent and invoking hybrid link mode, we get that operational consistency and that single pane of glass management. And it's from here that we can invoke some of our migrations and our vMotions from this user interface. And it's with the enhanced vMotion capability support, we can actually support cross-cloud vMotion migrations rather than requiring an entire cluster to run at least a common denominator in terms of CPU architecture. This can now be enabled per virtual machine. So how do we get started with VMware Cloud on AWS? Well, it starts with some planning. And during this stage, there's some things that you're going to need fairly quickly. One of those is an AWS account to utilize those AWS native resources. Another is a My VMware profile to enable your SDDC deployment. So things like IP address planning. So subnets for your management gateways, for instance, cannot be changed post-configuration. So if there's an overlap here between what you have on-premise and what you plan to use in VMware Cloud on AWS, you'll have to destroy your SDDC and start over. So we need to thoroughly review the pre-flight checklist and visit the VMware Cloud on AWS Sizer to get an idea of cluster sizes and configurations to meet your requirements. If we look at some of the time involved to transition to VMware Cloud on AWS, in terms of deploying the cluster, well, this is by far the quickest part of the process. This is an automated deployment of your SDDC cluster, and typically will have your cluster, depending on size, up and running within about 90 minutes. Where we see by far the bulk of the work is in the discovery and planning stage, and subsequently the design, particularly around the integration with your on-premise environment. Networking is a key cornerstone to that design, whether you're using additional services like AWS Direct Connects, whether you're leveraging a partner solution such as an Equinix Cloud Exchange. This is certainly where we see the bulk of the time. Similarly, if you're planning to leverage those either existing or brand new AWS native services, that integration can take some time to design out. So a typical pre-production deployment might take in the region of a few weeks to design if we're talking a single cluster, single region, single AZ. For those multi-region deployments that are come with a lot more complexity, we could be running into the region of months before we get a proper design to deploy from. Of course, all of that design, all of those design choices and those configuration and settings will need to be applied to your SDDC post its automated deployment. So all of your NSX-based logical networking, your VPNs, your firewall rules, all of that needs to be done once your SDDC is stood up. Another key area is the hybrid cloud extension, the HCX integration with your on-premises environment. How is that going to be utilized? How is that going to be designed? How is that going to fit with your networking design to enable that true hybridity and enable that portability of workloads and those migration use cases? In terms of expanding your SDDC environment, well, due to the on-demand nature of your SDDC, there are certain thresholds in place which will automatically invoke another host to be deployed into your environment. And these are roughly 70% utilization on your storage across your cluster. And that will invoke another host being automatically deployed for you, which again is in the minutes. And if you wanted to invoke a user-driven expansion of your cluster, again, we're talking the region of minutes and hours, no longer than that. So once you have your VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC designed and deployed as per your requirements, you have your necessary integration, your HCX and your hybrid link mode has all been set up. You're going to want to enter a period of validation. So this is really functionally testing the environment, running through some test scripts that you may have developed or some particular test scenarios that you have in mind. Following this, or during this process, you're going to want to put some pilot workloads on there, whether these are brand new virtual machines that you've created or workloads that you've migrated from on-premise, before starting to consider how you productionize and move this environment into operations. And now the time spent in this area will vary depending on the size and complexity of your particular environment. So once we've looked at the sizing for VMware Cloud on AWS, we can look at their pricing calculator. And here you'll see various options. We have on-demand pricing, so per month pricing. We've got 1 and 3 year reserved instance models, and you can see these will be significantly more commercially attractive, but will require some upfront commitment. We can add on services such as site recovery for that DR use case. VMware Cloud and AWS can be purchased via your reseller route, or for smaller deployments can be stood up on a credit card. And we can also utilize things like existing VMware credits to stand up VMware Cloud and AWS, or you can purchase through a managed service provider such as Xtravirt. It's always a good idea to check the VMware Cloud and AWS roadmap to see what's publicly available, what's in the pipeline in terms of features and capability, and what's been worked on. So here at Xtravirt, we've got some specific VMware Cloud on AWS services accelerators. The first one that you can see here is a planning workshop, and this service has been designed to work with you to understand the solution in a little bit more detail, as well as look at your on-premises environment to assess its readiness to integrate with VMware Cloud on AWS. It's typically run over a 2 to 3 day period and can be delivered flexibly using a time and materials engagement model. So the second service accelerator is the VMware Cloud on AWS implementation service. It's a natural follow-on to the planning service, and this is really aimed to help you with your design, deployment, and enablement of your very first VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC and cluster. The engagement time can vary, but it's typically over a month's worth of engagement, and can be delivered again using that flexible time and materials model, or something more fixed if we're working towards fixed outputs and fixed outcomes once we know your requirements. For more information, please visit Xtravirt's VMware Cloud on AWS dedicated landing page, where you'll find some valuable collateral and assets such as FAQs and industry insights. If you'd like to reach us directly, then please email info@xtravirt.com. Thank you for watching.
Well, excellent. And I'm actually joined by Andy Hine now today, and thank you very much for making the video for us. We really appreciate it. I know along with James, you've been answering a couple of the questions directly during the video. I wonder, Andy, if there's any extra questions that we need to pick up through the Q&A session.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody. So we have a question here around inquiring about the possibility of a single host option. So yes, there actually is an option for a single host deployment. This is known as an SDDC starter configuration. This is, however, limited to 30 days. So after this time, you'll need to redeploy your cluster if you're looking to move it into production. But it does provide a good option for those customers looking to run a proof of concept or a pilot of the VMware Cloud and AWS solution.
Excellent, thanks, Andy.
We've got another question here around licensing, particularly around Microsoft licensing requirements for workloads in VMware Cloud and AWS. So I guess it's key to say that as with all cloud migrations, it's important to ensure that you're covered in line with your Microsoft and your other vendor licensing programs. The difference with VMware Cloud on AWS compared to, say, native AWS is that this solution is based on a per host architecture. Therefore, all the hosts in your cluster must be licensed accordingly. Now, we have seen customers segregate their clusters based on their intended usage and the subsequent license implications. So, for example, having a dedicated database cluster might make sense. If your Microsoft licenses are covered with software assurance and you've got the necessary mobility options on those licenses, then you can bring your Microsoft licenses to this platform. A key date to think about here is as of the 1st of October last year, 2019, Microsoft introduced some quite significant changes in their license terms for cloud usage. So if your licenses, your Microsoft licenses were acquired after this date, or if you don't have any at all, then you can subscribe to new Microsoft licensing for things like Windows Server and for SQL, utilizing VMware and Microsoft's service provider license agreement for use within VMware Cloud on AWS.
Excellent, thanks, Andy. Excuse me. And James, have you got a couple of questions that you're going to try and answer for us?
Yeah, there's a question that's just come in around, is it possible to get the same network and firewall, I presume, configuration for what they're running on-premise? Technically, that's possible. It is, if you're using VMC as almost an extension of your existing data center, then one of the options is to route traffic back through your on-premise and use your sort of perimeter firewalls, so to apply a consistent policy. If you happen to be one of the customers that's already running NSX on-premise, then again, it is possible to use the tags in a similar way with NSXT within VMC. I also had another question come in around how is the stretch cluster implemented within VMware Cloud? So a stretch cluster is deployed into two separate AWS availability zones. So those are AZs of your choice within the region, and then VMware automatically deploy the vSAN witness to the third availability zone. This obviously changes the minimum host count for the solution to 6, and hosts can be added or removed later, but must be done in pairs. The newly announced 2-host solution that Andy mentioned earlier is currently not available in a stretch cluster configuration. And then the other question was, is it possible to upgrade a single AZ SDDC solution into a stretch cluster? And the answer is no. The choice is done at deployment time, so it's not currently possible to migrate between a non-stretch to a stretch cluster. Okay, that's it for my questions. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you, James. I think there was another question about a commercial query on internal or hosted cost differences and cost differentiation. I think for particular commercial conversations, if there's an explicit situational query that we can help you with, it might be best to just get in touch with us and ask the question. There's lots of cost calculators that you can look at today, and we've got various cost calculator tools that tell us the price modeling for AWS, depending upon loading and user base or resource requirements. But there are a number of commercial vehicles that you can consume and buy VMC on AWS from ELAs if you're in a licensing program through to the MSP modeling, and they come with different commercial terms and different rates. So if you'd like to drop a note or in the chat box any specific details, we'd be more than happy to come back to you and show you what that commercial information looks like. Andy, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple to look at. So this question is around billing. The question is, how will I bill if additional hosts are deployed in VMware Cloud on AWS? So if you have VMware Cloud on AWS subscription, utilizing the 1 or 3 year plan, you'll have what's known as a minimum host commitment. This is agreed with VMware and has a subsequent cost model applied to it. If you burst your capacity and you add more hosts and they're automatically deployed, this is known as your overage. So the overage is the difference between your minimum host commitment and your actual usage. And this difference in usage is billed in monthly arrears for your additional hosts, and it uses the on-demand pricing model. We have another question here, which is rather pertinent around have we seen VMware Cloud on AWS help customers during the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, yes, we have, absolutely, especially those customers who are looking to deploy additional data center infrastructure quite quickly, but they've faced long lead times in terms of hardware delivery and getting their DCs upgraded due to lockdown, basically. So for that requirement, the solution certainly helped. And in line with that, the pandemic has brought DR into the forefront. And the solution, again, is fit for that requirement, whether it's an additional greenfield data center or whether we're using something more automated like Site Recovery Manager from VMware. Another consistent topic with the pandemic has been remote working. So with the VDI capabilities available in VMware Cloud and AWS, this supports this use case really, really well. It allows customers to stand up or extend their VDI environments to provide virtual desktops and applications, which can then be securely delivered over the internet. And certainly with that VMware Horizon support, as was mentioned in the presentation, we've seen lots and lots of customers take this up as an option. And with that cloud pod architecture, as mentioned, they've been able to integrate additional VDI pods that are running in VMware Cloud on AWS with their existing Horizon on-premises environments and just manage those as one entity. So it's really, really nice solution. It's worth pointing out that VMware have been running a lot of quite attractive pricing offers to help customers with their solutions that they've been putting together during this pandemic. So these offers were due to run through until the end of last month, so July. However, we're fairly confident that they're going to be extended and they'll be flexible based on your individual requirements. So as Matt, as you were saying, we're more than happy to have some of these conversations on your behalf with VMware. So please do reach out to us after this webinar and we'll take that up for you.
Thanks. And I believe there's another question, James, for you that you might be able to answer today.
Yeah, there's a question that's come in regarding customers, I guess, are using NSXT on-prem. Does the firewall rules or are the firewall rules migrated with HX or vMotion to VMC on AWS? That totally just comes down to how NSXT is used on premise. If you're using IP sets or subnets for your firewalling, then there would be some reconfiguration required. However, if it's done with tags, then that is something that can be taken into VMC.
Okay, great. Thank you, James. I know there's, I think, a couple of other questions that are a bit more pertinent or explicit use case scenarios that will follow up directly with those people that have asked that question. I think to close out the session today, if we finish off the Q&A section, to close off the session today, firstly and most importantly, thank you for taking the time to join us and thank you for participating in the webinar. I think you're all going to be receiving a follow-up email which will include on-demand digital link along with all the additional resources on VMware Cloud on AWS should you wish to find out any more detail. The webcast is also going to be available on our website, which is xtravirt.com/VMC-AWS, where you can also find additional reference material, including a report on the total economic impact, which is research completed by Forrester. We're going to leave the chat available for a little while, should you wish to contact us directly today about any particular area of interest, or you can please just email info@xtravirt.com to directly get in touch. So finally, many thanks for joining us today. Hopefully you found it of interest and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar session that we host. So many thanks. Have a great day.